Half-truths. Psychology and the state of your mind. Half-truths are deceptive statements that include some element of truth and leave those that accept them as true without any truth at all. This video series disintegrates those deceptions. This episode is on psychology and the state of your mind. Let's just start by searching psychology and tally the videos into categories. The categories I chose were healthy, ill, educational, fun, manipulative, and philosophical sales pitches. The basis of this decision came from observation of the videos themselves, with the addition of what I wanted to look at, healthy versus ill. Scanning through 137 videos, I tallied 9 videos which were about healthy psychological states, 24 which were about mental illness, 40 educational videos, 39 fun facts and why school sucks videos, 18 videos about how to manipulate people, and 7 sales pitches for adopting a particular philosophy's psychological state. These last 7 were blatant sales pitches, but the point of this video is that all of them are sales pitches, and they are advertising a philosophy that focuses on inventing and medicating the problems it causes. Even the video I tallied as having a healthy outlook are the same garbage philosophies which lead to misery and death. For example, quoting from 3 of the top 10 healthy videos, quote, "We become immortal by understanding through the power of our own brains to connect with the soul. I challenge any scientist in the world to prove me wrong. I think we are here on this earth to prove that the soul is able to go through our conscious brain and become manifested, and that is the core. If we stay at the core, we grow into it. If you're happy, you don't seek for compensation." Unquote. Quote, "Our brains are naturally programmed to hone in on negativity. Just look at our memories, which take nearly 4 times longer to store good things than bad things. We look for the flaws in other people, and we prefer to criticize instead of compliment, because we are instantaneously drawn to negativity, and we don't treat ourselves any differently. Your self-confidence relies on your ability to pay attention to talents, achievements, and advantages. By simply committing a little extra time each day to remind yourself of your strength, you can boost your self-esteem and begin to build that confidence you have been looking for. Whenever the topic of altruism comes up, some people think that doing a nice thing doesn't count if you're also helping yourself in the process, while scientists and philosophers could probably argue for hours about whether any generous act is actually selfish. You can and should do things like donating or volunteering as a way to build your confidence. Even if you don't have much time or money to give back, by simply putting out the effort to help someone else, you know that you matter to that person and no one could ever take that away from you. Volunteering can provide you with a sense of purpose." Unquote. Quote, "Beyond boundaries. What a theme, huh? Now when I think about boundaries, I think of rules, regulations, restrictions, and I think of the parents and the teachers and the supervisors who hold us accountable with regard to those boundaries. Now that's not a bad thing. I know if you're like me, I need supervisors. I need someone holding me accountable to do the right thing. But beyond boundaries is something different. I think of those leaders, those teachers, those supervisors, those parents who inspire us to go beyond the call of duty, to do more than we have to do it not because they tell us, but because we want to. This is the motivative question. Do you believe the consequences? This is about consequences. B.F. Skinner taught us this, selection by consequences. Dale Carnegie quoted B.F. Skinner and said, "From the day you were born, everything you did was because you wanted something for doing it. Consequences. Is it worth it?" Were you thinking independent or interdependent? I don't blame you if you thought independent, you know. That's how we were raised. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Gotta blow our own horn. You know, independent. We come into this life of ours, dependent to others, and then we can't wait to be teenagers, you know? You're too old to do what kids do, too young to do what adults do, so we will do what no one else will do. We will assert our independence. Some of us get stuck there. I'll do it myself. I don't need you. Not good. We need each other. We have to have each other's backs. We need a sense of community. This independence culture that we gotta move to interdependence. We need to help each other become self-motivated." Unquote. I had tallied these videos in the healthy section because of their titles and descriptions. The first video I quoted used the description, "It's all in your brain, brain psychology, the power of your mind, motivation for 2019. The second used the title, 7 Psychological Tricks to Build Unstoppable Confidence. And the third was titled, The Psychology of Self-Motivation. Despite their titles and descriptions, there is nothing in these videos that will lead to motivation or confidence. Each of these videos is based on a psychology developed from Plato, meaning a psychology developed from the idea that man is incapable of reaching the form of perfection as mind and body are not one. Each of these videos acts to sever mind and body, and I don't think that even the creators of them know why or that they are doing it. Psychology means the study of the psyche or soul. However, there is no soul or object that we can concretely point to and say, this is what I am studying. Psyche is a higher level abstraction, and for that reason, any philosophy that is incorrect will come to an incorrect conclusion about what the psyche is. For example, Plato's Socrates states that the psyche is able to achieve wisdom and experience in the perfect forms after death, when it is no longer trapped in the body. Plato's idea of psyche is flawed by his assumption of non-existent perfect forms. It forms a psychology that suggests that we cannot know the reality of our universe, and that our destiny is determined. If you wanted to be an inventor, any original invention you make would have to have a form, and that form would be more perfect than your real invention because your invention might have a scratch, and it will degrade over time. If your invention is already a form, then you did not invent it. You discovered it from some sort of collective unconsciousness, where forms float about randomly, and any contribution to humanity is due to a gift from the universe, or a selfish attempt to snatch a collective idea from the masses' collective mind. This collective unconscious idea comes to us from Carl Jung, who was inspired by Freud, who was inspired by Plato. Jung went on to state that your persona is a mask for the collective psyche, which pretends to be an individual, so that it itself and other mask-wearing personas believe it is an individual. There are those who oppose the study of the Platonic psyche, and in their opposition they resort to only studying the Platonic body, that being a body without mind. Biological and behavioral psychologists are an example of this type of study, with big names like B.F. Skinner and John Watson. As a little background, B.F. Skinner wrote in his book about behavioralism, the position can be stated as follows. What is felt or introspectively observed is not some non-physical world of consciousness, mind, or mental life, but the observer's own body. Because of this, Skinner believed that technology could and should be used to help make a better society. Skinner also suggested in Walden 2 that the population needed to be decreased in order to save the world. No matter what field of psychology you examine, at its roots you will find an irrational premise and a monster that hates mankind. The problem with psychology is that no one examines the roots. They simply start with one of the select few options, the one that feels right, and you study ideas based on the roots you never fully examined. Regardless of the effort and quality of the research and innovative minds in their respective subsections of psychology, their interpretations of the data fall short of the truth, making psychology my first exploration into half-truths. There is a ton of half-truths in psychology, and there is too much to cover in one video. So let's return to these 24 mental health videos versus 9 not-so-healthy videos. Spoiler alert, according to psychology, everyone is depressed. Let's just go through this one video about, quote, high-functioning depression, unquote, and I'll show you what I mean as we go.
Many psychologists associate high-functioning depression with persistent depressive disorder, which is a prolonged state of depression. Those with high-functioning depression may not feel as helpless as those with clinical depression, but their depression does affect tremendously their quality of life.
So right off the bat, we are told that high-functioning depression is not clinical, meaning it does not fit the criteria of the DSM-5, either in amount of time feeling this way, intensity, or whether or not it is affecting your interactions with others. The DSM criteria reads as follows. Depression, DSM-5 diagnosis criteria. The DSM-5 outlines the following criterion to make a diagnosis of depression. The individual must be experiencing 5 or more symptoms during the same 2-week period, and at least one of the symptoms should be either 1. Depressed mood, or 2. Loss of interest or pleasure. 1. Depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day. 2. Markedly diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities most of the day, nearly every day. 3. Significant weight loss when not dieting, or weight gain or decrease or increase in appetite nearly every day. 4. A slowing down of thought and a reduction of physical movement, observed by others, not merely subjective feelings of restlessness or being slowed down. 5. Fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day. 6. Feelings of worthlessness or excess or inappropriate guilt nearly every day. 7. Diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness nearly every day. 8. Recurrent thoughts of death, recurrent suicidal ideations without a specific plan or a suicide attempt or a specific plan for committing suicide. To receive a diagnosis of depression, these symptoms must cause the individual clinical significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The symptoms must also not be a result of substance abuse or other medical conditions. High-functioning depression does not seem to fit because this last part about impairment in social occupational functions.
It minimizes their interest in everything, including social events with friends and family. High-functioning depressives will go to school or work and socialize when necessary, but once they're done with their responsibilities, they'll withdraw themselves.
So the high-functioning part of the high-functioning depressive means is a normal person that gets sad about life. But did you catch the wording? But once they are done with their responsibilities. There is nothing wrong with responsibilities from the objective point of view. But remember that most of psychology is based on Plato, and remember what these philosophies believe about what responsibility means. Hold on to that image as it will reveal its ugly face soon enough. The narrator then begins the list of 7 signs you might be a member of this group of crazies.
Here's 7 signs you may have high-functioning depression. Number 1. You're concerned with time. Although you're achieving your goals and completing all your tasks, you feel like you're wasting your time. Even if you find a new hobby or job, it still feels like a fool's errand, and you wonder if all the time you're investing into such activities are worth it.
As this list proceeds, we can examine this under 2 perspectives, the wrong way and the objective way. So what happens when we split number 1 into these 2 groups? Under the wrong philosophy perspective column, we could say that life is hell, and you just gotta go along to get along, that happiness comes from the sacrifice of your happiness, and that you should be happy working for others and having your work earnings given to those that don't have to be happy at work like you. From this point of view, someone who is sad at the end of their workday where they met the criteria for their job must not be thinking properly. From the objective point of view, being concerned that you are wasting time comes from a knowledge that you are capable of more, that meeting the minimum requirement of a dead-end job is not enough to feel alive. Under a mixed economy, the man that feels that starting a new job is a fool's errand and not worth the pain of being called greedy, being robbed in taxes, and being buried under regulations formed by their competition's lobbyists, is the man that is thinking clearly. He is sad because he is experiencing the slavery of his mind. The other group thinks he is sad because he has no mind and his body needs medication to make him think like them.
Number 2. You constantly criticize yourself. Because you feel like you're not achieving much, you criticize yourself. Your expectations are too high, so you push yourself to the limit, affecting your state of mind.
From the objective view, this feeling is deserved, and it is the aspect of justice that comes from reality. The good will be rewarded. The bad will be punished, not from some cosmic entity, but because things have consequences. If you know you can do better, and you are either not trying or not allowed to do better, you will have a contradiction in your thinking, and you cannot be happy with a contradiction. From the various incorrect philosophies, this constant criticism seems unwarranted, because these people are high achieving unlike them. And when you are a good Platoist, you don't do more than necessary, and you are happy with that. So, from that perspective, why can't the high achievers be happy not achieving excellence as well?
Number 3, you overthink. It doesn't matter if a situation is big or small. You'll find yourself overthinking it and eventually breaking down.
Let me ask you, what does it mean to overthink? From this line, we can start with the result and work backwards, eventually breaking down. Breaking down like a machine or a car, and what causes a machine to break down? A contradiction in its works. 3 cogs all touching is a contradiction that stops the wheels from turning, which breaks down the machine. Overthinking is an anti-concept, meant to replace and obliterate the legitimate concept thinking. As Ayn Rand says, an anti-concept gives you an approximate understanding. If your thinking is not based on approximations, then you will not be able to overthink. Overthinking is only possible to a man that holds a contradiction in his thinking. The only reason to think about a topic too much is because you have not made a decision. The only reason you have not made a decision is because you cannot weigh the pros and cons. You have a contradiction. But if life as an end in itself is the goal for the individual, and he pursues a non-contradictory happiness, there is nothing to overthink. You do what's right. There can only be one right answer. Most overthinking is caused by fear of the unknown, and that comes from a lack of confidence in yourself. That lack of confidence comes from not achieving or not being allowed to achieve your goals. Are you seeing the pattern?
Number 4, you feel misunderstood. Since most high-functioning depressives can maintain a job, a house, and their responsibilities, people underestimate how much anguish they're going through, minimizing their feelings simply because they don't act like the typical depressed person.
If you are a high achiever among what appears to be a sea of happy-go-lucky non-thinkers that are happy with reaching the bottom rung of life, would you not feel misunderstood? It's not a causeless feeling. It is a reflection of reality. Those that do not wish to engage their minds and thought will misunderstand the man that hasn't. He has no choice in that he will not understand because he has chosen not to think properly. There are those that do use their mind properly, and you might feel that they misunderstand you too. But the loved ones that tell you that you can handle a job, a house, and your chosen responsibility are telling you that because they want you to focus on the fact that you are capable, and that your depression is based on your outlook, based on your contradictions. They are trying to help you be the person that they know you can be.
Number 5, you feel saddened. It's normal to feel sad from time to time, but if you're sad or numb most of the time, even while participating in fun activities, you may be suffering from high-functioning depression.
So you are a high-functioning, high-achieving individual that does not feel like they are living up to their full potential because of an irrational fear or social pressure or force. Everyone around you wants you to be happy doing the bare minimum like them, and this constant feeling of being misunderstood leaves you feeling sad and numb to the world around you. You can laugh at a dinner party, but that just isn't enough to bring the excitement that a mutual understanding of minds can bring. In this light, does this sound like a list of symptoms to an uncontrollable mental illness, or like a chronological timeline of a mind being sacrificed to others?
Number 6, you have unhealthy coping strategies. Since you overwork yourself, you may lean towards drugs or alcohol to deal with stressful situations. Many high-functioning depressives turn to self-destructive habits to clear their minds.
If you are working for something that will benefit your life, then there is no way for you to overwork, except to say that you work longer or harder than some statistical average, but you reap the benefits of that overtime. So why would you escape into unhealthy coping strategies? One does not cope with happiness. They cope to equalize problems with their minimum ability to handle it. If you need to use drugs to cope with work, it is because you are not benefiting from your work. Getting paid is not enough to satisfy your life. The narrator states that this is from overworking, the corollary anti-concept that follows from overthinking. Overworking implies a contradiction in the actions of an entity. It could be taken from the way it is said that by working hard you could avoid drug abuse, but that is just the other side of the same immoral evasion of values.
Number 7, you have excessive pastimes. Along with any unhealthy coping habits you have, you may also find yourself constantly gaming or binge-watching TV series, among other things. Although these activities seem normal, the problem is you're actually using them to escape reality.
The only reason I could think that you would not include excessive pastimes under unhealthy coping habits is that some of these pastimes are not unhealthy. That in fact, these things you might wish to pursue as a goal or value. Before I discovered Objectivism, I made YouTube videos that mostly just sucked. It was an excessive pastime, and with less than 1,000 subscribers and 5 patrons, it might still be an excessive pastime. To me, it is what I want. It does not contradict with any of my values. It makes me happy. But to those that think that YouTube is not a career, they would say that this pastime is an escape from the reality of a 9-to-5 minimum wage job.
High-functioning depression is difficult to notice because those who suffer from it are still able to continue with their responsibilities. Since they don't act like the typical depressive person, they believe that they're truly okay. But in reality, it's not okay to live life feeling numb, sad, and constantly criticizing yourself. If you do have high-functioning depression, try to find the root of it. Only by doing so can you truly live happily.
So follow this through with me. That which is called a high-functioning depressive throughout this video seems to be more like a new intellectual that feels trapped in a world designed to destroy his mind or feed off of it. Even if he succeeds, someone will take it away from him and give it to those that didn't even try. If he wants to be happy, he acts rationally and gets in trouble. If he acts proper to their moral code and simply follows the advice given to him, he confronts reality with a contradiction and he cannot integrate the two opposing views together at once. He gives up. He turns off his thinking. He escapes into drugs and activities that allow him to hide from the fear caused by the contradiction he dare not face. From this point of view, this video is not about symptoms. It is the prescribed timeline Platoists want you to pursue. Once the mind has reached the 7th stage, all you need to do is tell him what to think through the media he consumes to escape his own thinking. It is the Mass of today, the sermon that states that it is not your fault that you feel this way. It is just your sick mind. Follow the advice of God, of society, of the psychologists, and renounce your high standards and be happy with what you are now. Do not pursue higher goals. Just learn to be happy with minimum wage work and a minimum life. If you feel like you might be a high-functioning depressive, ask yourself, what am I doing to better my life? And am I doing it with an unbreached rationality? Every time you feel bad about yourself, ask yourself, what did I do or not do that caused this feeling? Every time you ask yourself a question and you find yourself getting upset and feeling like you don't know, if you find that moment you blank out and attempt to evade your thinking, it is the moment you found the contradiction. That is the cog that stops the machine. Pull it out and examine it objectively. You are not depressed, you are awesome, and you just need to fix a contradiction to show it without fear or guilt.